Hello friends, this is Caleb Warnock and I want to make a really fun Christmas card like this that is, instead of being painted, is printed. I think then this is such a simple, easy Christmas card to do. I want to just put a piece of tape down the center of the paper. You can use watercolor paper. I am using multimedia paper. What is this called? Mixed media paper. I'm using mixed media paper. Put a piece of tape down the center, and you have to remember that there is a perforated line here. So if you are actually going to give this as a card, which I am, then you want to judge the middle according to that line and not the top of the page. It doesn't need to be exact, of course, but it does. You do want it to be, roughly in the center. And then we just want to make some prints of leaves coming sort of out from the center of there. And to do that, I went outside and just gathered. It's been a snowy day here today, and was snowing all morning, and there's still snow on the ground. But I just went outside and gathered. While I was out there, I had to go, shovel the driveway. And so I just gathered pieces of stuff. This is a piece of juniper. And I'm just going to set that right there. And then you want to use a piece of scratch paper to press that. I painted it. This is a bowl of woad that I mixed. It's just woad leaves because it's almost Christmas and the woad leaves are beautiful right now. And I think woad leaves in the blender with as little water as I could get in there because I want this paint to be as dark as possible. And now I'm just very carefully pressing down the stem and then down the side, down the main stem and down the sides of the stem, and then try to pull this up without smearing it. And please forgive my voice. I'm overcoming a little bit of a cold here. And then this bowl is a lighter color paint, and it started out as a mixture of, so you shouldn't move it once you've touched it down. Hopefully that didn't smear it. I'm talking and trying to print at the same time. And probably you don't want to smear that either, so it might be a good idea to just blow dry this in between, but hopefully I didn't mess that up. So it makes a really good print on this side. And then try to pull that off there straight up. Now this paper that I have been using, so it doesn't, you have to press it with a piece of paper so that it doesn't smear. And even though it's scratch paper, I'm using the side that does not have ink on it because that ink can come off. Now I'm going to, let's see, paint on some holly. I want my holly to have pretty good veins. Oh, I was going to tell you what was in this paint. It started out that I was doing yew. And when you're painting this on here, by the way, you want just a thin layer. And if you have a little excess, tap it off like this. That adds little specks, which I think are really nice on the painting. I'm going to have to find another piece of scratch paper and then set this very carefully on here. And then smash it flat as best as I can. This is Mahonia, also called mountain holly, also called Oregon grape. Where I live in the Rocky Mountains, real holly does not grow, but this is what we call mountain holly. Okay, that made a really nice print right there. And I'm wondering, I want to do one more. Maybe I'll do it and just leave this area blank. Oh, because I do want to put some holly berries in there, so maybe I will put a little U. Let's see, I had a piece of U already. Kind of hate to pull that one apart. Oh, here's my piece of U hiding over here. And when we're doing U, we want to make sure that we're printing the back side of all of these. We want to print the back side because that's where the more pronounced veins are. And so you'll get a better... Okay, and I'm just flicking some of this excess paint off of here. And then I'm going to set that right there. And then go straight down on it so it doesn't move. And feel with my fingers. I'm printing the main vein. Just getting a good print and then carefully lift the paper straight up and see what a good print it leaves on there. And then try to lift this straight up without smearing it, which is proving difficult. So not bad, not a bad print. Now I'm going to turn this whole thing upside down and do that whole thing again, maybe kind of in the opposite direction. And I know I keep forgetting to tell you guys what's in this paint, but I wanted this paint to smell like Christmas. So in the blender, I put some celery leaves and some pine needles, and that smelled really good. And I put a little bit of U in there also. And then I didn't think it was dark enough. The color, I didn't think it was dark enough. And so I went back out and just sort of started grabbing everything. I went and looked through my swatch books, which one day I'll have to do a video of my swatch books and show you guys. And I went and looked through my swatch books, and I was trying to find a darker green color, and I saw that willow makes a darker green color, and I went outside, and of course there was no willow to be found anywhere because it is almost Christmas. And so I just started gathering everything. Like I put in some rosemary, I put in some pine needles, I put in, oh my goodness, what did I put in? A whole bunch of different stuff. And just, you know, grabbing stuff out of the greenhouses and out of the yard and the garden. And it didn't really make it darker, but it did make it interesting. It did make it interesting. But I still wasn't very pleased with how dark, because I was looking for a darker green that would show up better. And so I was a little frustrated, and then I remembered the woad leaves growing outside, and woad leaves always make a rich, dark forest green. So as the sun was setting and the temperature was below freezing, I went out to put the horse to bed and grabbed some woad from out of the garden and put it in the blender with some water. Okay, I like that. That's good. I'm going to do it now. I want to do 2 of these mountain holly leaves. And I guess just for a different pattern, we could have done a different leaf, but I'm just actually printing the same leaf over and over. I don't know if that's advisable or what, but it's what I'm doing. And I just put that woad in the blender with as little water as I could get in there, and that's the paint that I made, and that's working really nicely. So kind of nice to have 2-tone, I think. The problem with what I'm doing here is that I'm not blow drying these in between, and I probably should be, but so far I have not messed it up, so that's pretty good. And then somewhere here I have a little juniper sprig. Well, I can't find the one I just used, but there's more here. So, and this is kind of a small space. I just want to put one right there. So maybe that would be, maybe that one's too small. Let's see if we can find one. Well, this one looks pretty nice. We'll do this one, and we'll do it right here like that. How about like that? So just a little more of this painted on here. On the juniper, I just want to make sure that I get enough, so I'm putting it on a little more heavily because the juniper is probably the most difficult to print. There's not a lot of give in these juniper twigs, but when it does work, it works nicely. Okay, and then I'm going to try to pull that up. It's okay. It's not the best, but it'll do. Okay. And again, this piece of paper is all used up and needs to go into recycling. And now on this one, I wanted to put in some holly berries. Mountain holly does not actually form berries like that. It forms berries that are purple, and actually they're kind of blue. But I was using this. Let me clean this off here. So I was using this cochineal, and I think the great thing, this is just cochineal, one cochineal with a little bit of a tiny dusting of citric acid, a tiny dusting of alum, and a tiny dusting of cream of tartar, which is the recipe that is necessary for this Christmas red color from cochineal. And I went to the store and I found this whole package of wooden craft dowels of different sizes. And on this other one I used this dowel, which I now think maybe was a little too big, so now I'm using this dowel, and I'm just going to print these by dipping this in here and printing berries. Right onto the paper using my dowel. Now see how easy could that be? Everything here is printed instead of painted. And now I'm going to hit this with a blow dryer, and then we'll come in and do the greeting message underneath the tape. Okay, I dried that with the blow dryer, and this is not going to be enough, I don't think. Plus it has gone just a slightly bit pink because I added more water to it. So I'm going to take one cochineal right here, and I'm going to grind up some more. 1, 2, 3, let's put 4 drops of water, a tiny dusting of cream of tartar, a tiny dusting of citric acid. I mean, like maybe a 1/50th of a pinhead, like a tiny dusting of citric acid, a tiny dusting of cream of tartar, and a tiny dusting of alum to get that Christmas red. And then we'll mull that together. In real time here, mulling this for you guys. I'm going to add this into the other. cochineal moles very quickly. I only wanted 4 drops of water in there because I'm going to use this as ink to write my Christmas greeting on here, and so I want it to be pretty thick so that it will show up. Always wipe the molar. Don't let it sit. I'm going to get a tiny liner brush, put that in. Oops, I forgot to take off the tape. This is totally dry, and this needs to be fully dry before you try to go in here, and because there's not really, because we're going to be writing in here, so it's kind of hard to not smear that unless this is totally dry. And then I am famous for my horrible handwriting, so please forgive me. I'm going to try to have good handwriting here, but as you'll see, it's just the best I can do. And this liner brush is so tiny that it runs out of paint quickly. It gives me good enough control that I can write but you have to redip pretty often. And I think this looks like something from 100 years ago, like a Christmas card that maybe you would find in an antique shop today. That's what it looks like to me, and I love it for that reason. And you know, in those days, they used to do these little flourishes that we don't really do anymore, which I also really love. Ta-da! What do you think? Merry Christmas! Now, I have a friend that this is going to go to, and I'm going to write them a letter on the back because I have a friend who is really struggling right now and talked to me yesterday and was really depressed about Christmas, and so I called our friends group. This friend doesn't know I did this yet, but called our friends group and said we better do something. And so we came up with a Christmas gift plan, and I am making the card as part of our gift and going to do something else too that I'll show you in a different video, which I think is going to be so great. But anyway, so that's simple, easy, just Christmas card, hand printed, hand lettered Christmas card. And you could use anything that looked sort of Christmassy out of your yard, and of course you don't have to use homemade paint, but why not do it? It is certainly fun to do it. Thank you for hanging out with me. If you are finding these videos to be enjoyable and useful, please be supportive by hitting the like button. I would love it if you would subscribe. Merry Christmas.